All right. So on this episode of Empowering Her, I have special guest Zineb. Zineb, thank you so much for being a guest on here and just taking your time to share your wisdom and experience.
My pleasure, Joshua. Thank you for this. Thank you for what you're doing. I'm psyched to be here.
Thank you. So let's start with what you're doing today, like what your career role is, and kind of your journey that you took to get where you're at now.
Hmm. Yeah. So today I have two gems. My main gem is I run a marketing consultancy, so I help entrepreneurs stop making stuff up by learning from their customers, those that have already put their hands in their pockets and paid for their service, right? Um, and my smaller gem is Pitch Slap. So having loads of fun with that. We do investor pitch mentoring for tech entrepreneurs.
That okay. Well, first of all, that's an amazing name, Pitch Slap.
It is.
And this would be I need to I need to bring you in and like have you teach my students because I think being able to pitch yourself and present yourself to others is like just such an important skill. And then as I start doing the interview series, we'll get more into that. But I think that's a skill that people kind of have to learn as they get older, and it would be, I think, super beneficial if they would have that skill of just even how to do an elevator pitch to present yourself to groups and friends and whatnot. So I think that's amazing. Where did you come up with, what is your background that gave you the inspiration to kind of move into like these two markets? Because I think it's amazing that you know you have two businesses that you're running. So I know you're like crazy busy, but like how awesome is that?
Yeah, well, my smaller gem, I co-run it, so I co-founded it with Taryn Hughes. So I have loads of help and wonderful help on that side. When it comes to Pitch Lab, let's just start with Pitch Lab. It just we had been in the startup, both of us in the startup world for years. Very passionate about startups, and we have both been investors, although he has invested more than I have. So we had that experience, right? Working with startups, and it just clicked. We saw a few models where people would tech founders would go on and pitch and get feedback, but it was always crowdsourced, no? And crowdsourced feedback, well, it's kind of dangerous because you really have to pay close attention to who you're getting feedback from, right? That grain of salt is super helpful. So we saw a couple of models that in that direction, and we thought, why not? No, let's do this, and we launched it right before COVID hit, um, and it just blew up, which was great. We launched it as a weekly TV show. We recently, evolved the model. It's no longer a weekly TV show, but yeah, we quickly in the first year we got pitchers from over 30 countries coming to get pitch slapped. No, so that was that, and then the marketing consultancy. My career started in corporate, right? And to make a long story short, I just felt that I was so far away from the customer, so far away from the end user, that you know building products, getting feedback, it was just it would take forever, and the approval processes would take forever. I mean, I can I can generalize. It generally is this way for bigger companies, but in my case, the two companies that I worked for, it was too long. So it's very frustrating for me. And when I decided to make the switch and I think we're going to get into that later on, which is get my MBA. That's where everything changed, right?
So did you start in marketing and then get your MBA, or how kind of what was that first step into marketing that where was that first step at?
Marketing per se, I think my first step was in sales, export, So sales enablement, if I had to, if I had to pick something, it would be sales enablement. And I absolutely loved um, working alongside sales and giving them the tools that they needed to move people along the buying cycle, right? Be it brochures, be it a video, be it whatever it was, right? I absolutely, I love that. But I think, like I said before, it was just taking forever to get feedback, to get a pulse on the market, all that just was very, very frustrating. And then I moved to product management. Like that was fun. I got to, be sort of reading the market and then working alongside the development team, right, to develop something and market it, etc., worldwide, which was an amazing opportunity. But again, it's slow and very frustrating. Yeah.
So this is kind of curious because I'm more in the digital area right now as far as with my internship. But let's talk about that, like that cycle from conception to market. How long does that typically take, and um, where were you seeing that 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 improvement can happen?
So in that specific case, I mean, we were, you know, best case scenario, 6 7 months. um yeah, in that specific case, right, 6 7 months, that's huge. And we're both in the digital world now, right? And that doesn't mean that you don't work with products that are physical, but still there are other ways. You don't need the product, the physical product in front of you to start validating. That's the beauty of that. Was the big shift in my head, right? I used to think that, oh, we need the product first. I need to ask to order the samples and then show them, and then et cetera, right? So that would just make the process even longer. But we don't need that today, right? We've got words, we've got design, we've got the elements, videos, mock-ups. We've got all these things.
Yeah, I heard a very interesting conversation the other day where they were talking about create demand for the product before the product's even built. And I was like, that's kind of brilliant. I love that. And then I've seen some other issues within marketing where we talk about, and this is getting off on a little bit of a tangent, which we'll reel it back in, but where the relevancy of the product is either to the wrong person or the right person at the wrong time. And
Mhm.
so you're like the other day, I got bombarded for advertisements for like women's like ski wear, and I'm like, I'm not a woman and I've never been skiing, so why did you think this was relevant to me at all? You're just like, who is wasting a bunch of marketing budget? Jeez. So with that, let's talk about like education, because my students are always like, how long do I have to go to school to do some of these careers? And so let's look at kind of the inside sales or sales enablement, which is like a cool, super cool term that never heard that one before. Would somebody need a degree to kind of follow along the path that you have led?
This question, I absolutely love this question because I've done college, I've gotten my MBA, I've done other courses along the way to sort of fill in the gaps, and I would say that no.
Okay.
I would say no. However, I'm a big believer in hands-on experience, right? Although I don't advocate for doing free work, but it is sometimes the best way to sort of figure out what you're good at and what you enjoy and what the market is willing to, what the market values in you, right?
Mhm.
So that's good. So if, the earlier the kids can um, maybe go to a startup or a company or a business and just start dabbling with stuff, right? To figure out, that mix of what they enjoy, what the market values, what no, the better it gets. But you can learn. You don't necessarily think that you don't necessarily need a college degree to do this. there are other small courses that complement your hands-on
Mhm.
experience. If you to learn about business, I think I've learned more about marketing from doing it
Yeah.
than at school. I don't know about the uh, what the MBAs are teaching nowadays, but and I hope they've evolved. But I feel like those examples were very corporate, first of all, which is not the direction I wanted to go in, right? So the P&Gs and all that, it's perfect for people in consulting, but the examples were also outdated, right?
Well, and
Absolutely
I
outdated.
think especially after COVID, where everything had to go so remote, and there was like everybody had to rethink of like how can we, number one, how can we even meet as a team,
Mm,
which then Zoom and Google Meet exploded,
mm,
um, but it creates this shift in thinking of how can we be effective in the almost like the digital space, because people, or once we had lockdowns and things like that, people were not able to go to brick and mortar. People, and so you know, shopping online became huge. So I would agree with you where the MBA, since everything has shifted and will continue to shift, we would hope that, and sometimes that is, and I'll be the first one to say that education is awesome, but in my own experience with school, like for example, I went to a teaching college and I got a lot of theory, but it wasn't until I started teaching and had several years of teaching that I became effective at teaching. And I went to HubSpot Academy and I took some marketing courses, and it gave me the terminology. But it's not until my own internship that I'm getting better and better at marketing. So in some ways, the education can be a little archaic and outdated, and it doesn't kind of keep up with the times.
Yeah, Joshua, absolutely agree, and fingers crossed. I hope they are updating the curriculum and all that. And I just have to say, in favor of college and the MBA is college. I think it's that structure that it does give you, right? Um, you're you know you're being thrown in with so many people, different people. You start to discover like the different clubs and maybe things that you enjoy more, others that you enjoy least, right? So that's also a nice thing, because it's sort of like not a safe space, but it's a space where you sort of can start playing around with certain ideas and validate things. um, and of course, it gives you access to a network after that, right? But does it mean that you have to pay 40,000 for access to a network, right? I don't know, when there's LinkedIn. I don't know. Or when they have you, right, Joshua?
Right. Um, no, yeah, that's and that was kind of I think going back, I think depending on what you want to do, if you want to be a lawyer, if you want to be a doctor, if you want to be an engineer, college becomes that necessary because you do have to do that. But if you want to get into like the sales, the marketing, recruiting, these careers that sadly are not really, we have career day at school, and like it's usually a university coming and pitching their $60,000 program, and they don't sell these, like for example, your story is amazing and you're successful, and like they could get started right after high school with going to these companies, and so let's talk about that for a second.
Mhm.
Would you say that most companies would be willing, if if a student reached out to them and said, "Hey, I think I'm interested in this. Can I understand what a day to day looks like? Can I, help with some activities? Can I?" Do you think most businesses or some businesses would be receptive to that idea?
I I hope they are, because that's the future. Yeah, that's the future hiring pool, right? But I hope they are. It's also paying it forward. I think it's a great opportunity. No, it can be time consuming, but if you dedicate certain resources to maybe having once a month, some shadowing program or something like that, I think it could be great. Hmm.
Let's talk about kind of salary, right? What wise? So when you were kind of in that sales enablement type role, what was what would you say a salary range would look like for something like that?
Yeah, so salary is a bit tricky, especially if you know, I'm in Spain, right? So it depends,
Okay.
the salaries are different in Spain than they are in France than they are in the US, right? So I wouldn't want them to base it on that. Um, and it also depends on, how much of a good negotiator you are, right? And I think in general, women have a tough time to in negotiating and saying, no, I this is what I want, right? So it's like, oh, you're gonna give me this, okay, I'm okay, right? I think in general, there's a big issue with women talking, um, uh, just standing their ground and saying this is what I'm worth. So that's a great conversation. But when you start out your very first job, I mean, you can't expect 60,000, right?
Right.
You can't expect that. So you sort of had to say, okay, how much are, because that was my thinking. What are, what do I need to cover my vital costs, right? And then my little extras. And the question is, am I willing to go beyond X, below X, right? And then I just went out there, right? That's not the that's not the energy that I recommend because I made a lot of mistakes, right?
Right.
Which is why, I stayed, the first I accepted a terrible salary the first time around. 8 months in, I was tired, right? Because
Yeah.
I was tired of not feeling valued, but that was on me, right? So then, I said, either you give me a salary increase or I'm out. And they did, luckily. But
So I like that because you realize like I'm gonna have to advocate for yourself for myself because nobody else is gonna
hmm,
do it. So let's talk about how can somebody know if they are being paid fairly for a role, and also maybe what is the best practice if they feel like they've been at the job 6 months, year, whatever the may be. What is the best way to advocate for going to your boss and saying, hey, I need more money?
well, to start out with, don't accept jobs that say, yeah, this is going to be the salary, but in 6 months, I promise you, this. You know, in my opinion, sometimes that salary increase never comes around. No, so from the very beginning, just you know put your foot down. This is my value. But the thing, Joshua, is that when you're starting your career, you're not clear on what your value is, right?
Okay, I
So
like
that's where it is. So
that. Okay.
that's the journey, right? And how can you know if it's fair or not fair? I recommend building a network around you, and you know let's say if someone is interested in knowing about the business that I'm doing, just reach out to me. Say, hey, can I have 20 minutes of your time? This is what I'm thinking, and I would love to run it by you. I would love to learn about your experience. And then you start digging and asking those questions, and you get references from everywhere. Mm.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's such a profound statement, that you don't know, you're not sure because you just don't know what your value is when you very first start. And as you build that experience and you contribute to, then you start to realize, okay, so this is what I'm bringing to the table. And so this is what I should be worth. And so I think that's beautiful that, you just got to be really mindful of, understanding what value you're bringing so that you can advocate for yourself.
Yeah, and which is why I push the doing part. Start doing from the very beginning, because that's what is that? Statton's law. It's a funny one. 90% of everything is crap, right? So might as well just put a whole bunch of stuff out because to be able to find that 10%. I
Mhm.
think the same thing applies here. If you start doing sooner, not wait until you're 25 and then be like, okay, so what job am I going to look for, right?
Right.
No, you already know. You've already tried this and tried that, and spoken to this person, spoken to that person. Maybe thanks to what you're doing, we're going to get younger people into LinkedIn, right? And LinkedIn won't be as boring.
Well, it depends if you get the recruiters on there, they like to fight, so they always create an interesting conversations when we start fighting on LinkedIn. But so I was having a conversation with Saad about this yesterday, and he said, "Josh, why is it?" Because he's up in Canada, and he's originally from Pakistan, and he goes, it's really weird. He goes, the SDRs, the BDRs, the marketing people, when we get them, they're 18, 19, even like 22, 21, right out of college. He goes, but if I look in the United States, a lot of these people that are stepping into these types of roles, whether it's recruiting or sales, or they might be in their 30s, even 40s. And I said, well, it's because America does, we prioritize those mainstream careers, and we say, it goes back to like the knowledge of it, and we'll go, hey, students, you can be a vet, you can be an engineer, you can be a doctor, a lawyer, and that's kind of it. And we also have these wonderful vocational programs, electrician, plumbing, coding, but we don't even really like champion those as alternative careers too. And so we get stuck in this. I've got to go to college and I've got to do this, and then they start. It's not until later that they find out about these, like all these wonderful careers that you can get into and just like kill it. And so that's kind of my hope with with this and bringing everybody on, is that I can start to push that needle back to, hey, there's also all this other stuff that is out there, and I think it'll bring a lot of energy and creativity by bringing in younger generations.
Mm. That's amazing. It just reminds me of an example. I don't know if you follow Justin Welsh on LinkedIn.
I
Yeah.
actually have, yeah, I have his course. I'm so busy. I'm trying to read through it, but yes, I love the guy. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think I'm pretty sure he posted something a few months back about someone that mows his lawn, right? So
Mhm.
we over idealize, the tech world and the startup world, etc. When you've got this guy that's mowing the lawn for, I don't know, let's just say $200. If he mows 4 lawns, you do the math during the rest of the month. So he is making more money than I am, right? And
Yeah.
he's probably making more money than anyone else. So, that's a respectable business. That's a business too, right?
Yeah.
Hmm.
So it's funny you mentioned that. She's a neighbor of mine, and you know, she started with mowing people's yards, and it's funny because it's almost strange to see a woman mowing yards. We think, oh, mowing yards
It
is a damn
is.
thing, which I mean, anybody can get out there and like push a mower. It's, are you willing to get out in the hot sun and do it? But so she started, and then she was able to, as she got more and more clients, then she was able to start to do businesses, and she was able to hire people to work for her because she was getting too busy to do it herself. And now she's got just this whole, like, she does whole neighborhoods, shopping centers, like she's like making a killing at it. So yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that, because it's she was very, very motivated, and she didn't take no for an answer, which
That's
we have this one of my neighbor's girls, she'll walk down the street, and she has this sign that she carries, and it says, walk dog $4, pick up trash $4. So it has all these little odd jobs that she'll do. And I'm like, she does that because nobody has told her that she can't do that. And I feel like sometimes when you're younger, people will champion those ideas, like, if you're 8 and go set up a lemonade stand, they go, oh, high five, little boy, little girl, but as we get older, like if I did that, they'd be like, Josh, get off the street. Like, you can't have the lemonade stand.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think in some ways it's better to get, when you're younger, to really get started, because that's when people are really pushing you to like succeed and move. And then as we get older, you start thinking of making a career change, and some of your biggest advocates, your friends and family, start going, "Ooh, are you sure You sure you want to do that? You sure you want to take
Mm,
that chance, that opportunity?
mm.
And so they start like this negative experience.
Yeah. Or the worst thing is, they just grab you by the cheeks and they're like, "Oh, she's gonna be a doctor, this one," right? And then that's it. That just messes with your head, right? But yeah, the sooner you start doing things, you feel stuff. We all have done things. I used to write scripts with my dad's typewriter when I was a kid, right? And
Okay.
that's something that I blocked out of my head for years until recently I sort of accepted the creative part. Uh, in me, right? So what are you already doing? Hmm?
Right. Yeah, that creativity is so like it's so downplayed. Everybody wants you to be logical, and but
Yeah.
creativity is what spurns you to start a business. That curiosity, that creativity, you
Hmm.
know. So I think that is so important. Let's talk about mentors for a second.
Yeah.
So, how important do you feel mentors are? And in your opinion, what is mentorship?
um yes, they're important. I don't know if maybe it could have a different name, no, but just what I mentioned earlier, to have these people. mm, you're probably something of somewhat of a mentor for some of them too, right?
Well,
Someone that
it depends. If I'm making them write essays, no. They're like, this is stupid. This is dumb. When am I ever going to use this?
Yeah, I what I really enjoy and I still have is professionals that human beings, first of all, but professionals that have, maybe they are in marketing, most are not. um, and one specifically is in sales, which is always comes in very handy, right? Because marketing and sales are very connected, and running a consultancy, sales is there, right? It's a basic. I think having these conversations where you just talk about your challenges, what's working, what's not working. Maybe coaches would do more of the question. They would ask you questions and have you sort of find the answer yourself. But it's nice at the beginning to have a mentor to maybe just open a few doors or tell you, go look here, right? Which I think a coach, that's the difference, right? I think coaches don't direct you. They don't tell you do this. They just ask questions to sort of um, lead you there. But yeah, having these conversations is super important, with people at the beginning.
I like that. I know I coached for many, many years, and then I realized that the way I coached was different than how I taught. And so I decided to change my teaching, the way I teach to the way I coach, which is asking those open ended questions. What do you think will happen if you, you know,
Yeah.
rather than trying to tell it? Because I wanted I want the kid to think through it, think critically about it. And I think once you start forcing them to, that's when they start kind of coming up with the answers themselves instead of like giving them the answer. But I think part of whether it's starting a business or trying to figure out a problem, in which starting a business is all about figuring out problems. That struggle, I think, makes you definitely stronger in your path and a little bit more resilient and give you a little bit of thick skin.
Hmm. Yeah. No, absolutely. Hmm.
Okay, so I have a hot seat question for you. This is the last question.
Shoot.
Okay. All right. So, and your answer doesn't have to necessarily be related to career or
Hmm.
education. It can just be life itself. But knowing what you know now, what is one piece of advice you would give your middle school or high school self?
Yeah. Middle school or high school, that's like so many years ago. I graduated in no, in oh my God, I don't even want to say it. Yeah. I'm not gonna say it, but yeah. I would definitely say, it's a tough one because I needed my process, right? Just a tad bit of context. I I minored in applied mathematics and I majored in business, right, in the US. And don't ask me why, but it's, daddy issues, you know, until I figured out what I really wanted to do. But that has taught me a lot. But I think it would have been more trusting my gut, that creative part that I was talking about, I think, and just seeing it through. Um, Absolutely. Yeah. Because I remember one of the very first jobs when I got to college, I, had I think 4 jobs at once. I was just like all over the place. One of them during the summer was renovating the dorms,
Mhm.
right? We were a team of 5 and we just literally like renovated the dorms, worked on, the walls, etc., painting, removing the rugs, the carpets, etc. And I was like, this is nice. I like this, working with my hands, right? So it started to click. I like doing manual things. I like doing creative stuff, right? Hmm. I definitely trust my guts.
I like that. That's awesome. Because you gave yourself a chance to do something different, a little bit outside of your comfort zone, and all of a sudden you're like, I like this. So by taking those opportunities and trying new things, you figure out things that you like that you might not have, you know, done so before.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was cool. Trust your gut. Yeah.
I love it. Love it. Was Neb, I really appreciate your time coming on here and just like your story is incredible and just sharing all this wisdom. I think I could probably talk to you for hours and like keep learning new stuff. Um, so I think we're gonna have to sit down again and chat. Um,
Yeah.
but
My pleasure. Thank you so much. And I love what you're doing.
well, I appreciate
Absolutely.
that.
Mm.
It's
Yeah.
and it's really it's only successful because you know I can facilitate the meeting, but it's only successful because there are people willing to donate their time and so yeah.
Yeah. My pleasure. Have a lovely weekend.
You too. Bye.
Ciao.